Welcome, everyone.
Hi there.
Nayeli is going to set up her screen so that we can review the upcoming strategies. Thank you.
You are welcome, Sharon. Is that working? I'll just blow it up a little bit. So,
That I see it fine.
okay.
Commissioners, are you okay with the visual?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So I think we'll talk about strategy 1.1 first, which is the equity and inclusion liaison. And so we want to think about what job responsibilities are most important for South San Francisco, would be the first question. We have some identified tasks or roles listed here. And the second question is, which action steps are most important for South San Francisco for the first year of implementation? And so I can open this up. Would you like for me to read the items again? Or are you all okay with the documents received and how you saw it earlier?
I think we're fine. I'm fine. I
Oh,
don't know for the other ones.
I'm fine.
so let's lead with the first question. Of the responsibilities listed, which are most important for South San Francisco? And we can start with Commissioner Norm.
Um, I think we have to, because it's a new position. And Redwood City, who's another city who's also new, and I think we have to start tracking initially how we work with that interaction with the departments, because all the things listed there are needed to be done, because it's new. Another question I was thinking about too, which is kind of getting off the topic very briefly. Will this position need to have like an admin's assistance or something like that? Because this person going, him or her going to many meetings, things of that nature, you have to have that liaison in the office that if you have another department call, if you have another issue arise. So I don't know if that's been, because that is another budgetary concern, or will that be filled by an existing admin in the city? But like you said, I think briefly, how the departments are going to interact with each other, what each department needs are, because it could be different in each one because of the type of structure. Library can have a whole set of dynamics, police department a whole set of dynamics, fire department. So I think you have to develop the case history of the programs that work for each department.
Thank you. Commissioner Nicholas?
I think what's important from my point of view, that the responsibility is to develop the plan. So this is like a map. If we don't have a map, we don't know where we're going. So the racial equity action plan, I think, is very important. So we know specifically really what we want to achieve at the end.
Thank you. Commissioner Powers?
Yeah, I agree with the other commissioners. They're all important, and I think this person will probably be doing all of them in the first year. If I had to pick one, I would also say the plan for the first bullet, and then probably the fourth bullet on infusing it into all programs activities, kind of being that person to just like make sure it's happening everywhere, not just within his or her position.
Thank you. Hey, Commissioner Murray?
So I agree. I think number one would be my first choice, because for the same reason, you need a map to know where you're going. My second and third choices would be infusing DEI and anti-racism into all programs, because that needs to be, you can have the map, but you need the structure. And I think with that as part of your goal, I think you need both of them actually. And then tracking progress. I think in order to, I think those three things, you need a map and you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then you need to track it to make sure it's working.
Am I missing anyone in the group? Would you all like to add to that? So I hear what we're saying is that we need a roadmap, right? And then we need some structure to it. Also, and identify a way to communicate across departments, and recognizing that with this action plan and the structure, that departments will have different needs. So we would have to have a way to structure the action plan to address the individual needs across the different departments. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Section 2, which action steps are most important for the first year implementation? So the question almost sounds the same, but we're thinking if we were to identify the first 12 months of this position, how do you all see it? We'll start with Commissioner Murray again.
I would say conduct equity audit of barriers and opportunities to see where we are and what we need to do.
Establish baseline. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my number one. I mean, systemized data collection and analysis, because in order to make sure it's working, you need to collect data.
So you foresee the equity audit as a way to collect the data?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah.
All right, now I'll just work my way up. Commissioner Powers?
I would also say those two are the most important. If I were to add a third, it would probably be training and performance reviews, or just starting to implement accountability and things like that.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit more about implementing accountability? What are you envisioning?
Well, it takes a while to normalize the idea that this is now a part of everyone's job, and they will be held accountable for it. And I think that actually takes a lot of groundwork to lay to kind of introduce people to that concept, because you don't want to just jump in all of a sudden and say, like, this is your performance review and, like, you didn't do what you were supposed to, right? Like, in terms of change management, it's just important to socialize the ideas of accountability early on.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Commissioner Nicholas?
Yeah, I agree with Pat that number 4, I think, is the first step, because that is like you're doing a gap analysis and also establishing the baseline. And then by collecting the data and analyzing them, systematizing that, that will give us how we're moving towards the goal. I think it's also important to have the community engagement and sharing of data with the community, because in that way, when you establish that community engagement, you gain trust in the community so that you will be able to get those data. Sometimes, people are always very dubious why you're asking questions and what are you doing with this. So I think that's also very important.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Faria?
I do agree with what both have said. I think you do have to conduct equity and audit barriers, but I think it all starts with the data you collect, because each department's going to have their own uniqueness, and hopefully you don't see any commonalities that's occurring in a negative way between all the departments with the barriers. So actually, conduct the audit and the system data, to me, they're all in the same line. I mean, as far as they both intertwine with each other. To build on what Kayla said, I with performance reviews, I think they have to be something that's consistent. You can't be at like excuse the analogy, a personal review where it only happens once a year, because then they get pushed to the side. People will go, gee, I've had my review for the year, I'm done with it. So I think there has to be consistent reviews and accountability, whether it be monthly, whatever, but I think the reviews have to be something that becomes second nature. They know they have accountability or reportings to be done on on how that department's performing on any goals or areas have been set.
Can I ask for a clarifying question for all of you? When we think about performance reviews, are we thinking department performance or are we thinking individual level performance? And feel free to chime in. I just want clarification.
I think you have to
Thinking
start with the department head, and then if there's issues going down in the department, then if you need to go out to an individual basis to address, I hate to say employees that let's say aren't following the company, the city's goals and directives on equity, then you deal with those on an individual basis.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, just to add to that, individual also is important to foster like the environment and culture within the city to, I mean, there are people of color, other like oppressed people in the city. So I think just the way people are carrying themselves and that they have a knowledge of these issues is also an individual level way to track accountability.
Thank you. Chair Nicholas.
I agree that it's both.
Thank you. Commissioner Murray, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that it's both. I think that in doing the developing the citywide racial equity action plan, what you're doing is you're setting expectations. You're saying and the making sure that or infusing. Sorry, I have to put on my glasses. Infusing DEI and anti-racism into all programs, activities, and internal and external practices. In doing that, you're setting the expectations. This is what we need. And so every single department and every single person has to adhere to those. And so you're going to look at the departments first, and then the departments are going to have to hold their people accountable. And the city council, city management, when they do their hiring, they have to be held accountable for who they're hiring as well. So if we're going to make systemic change, those things all have to be, we're setting expectations and they have to be held accountable for their actions, departments and individuals.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that and I'll just start from the last sentence you said, for systemic change and to ensure accountability, we need to hold departments and individuals accountable, right? And we start that by looking at the equity data or the audits and how we collect the data, and that will identify what challenges or experiences are happening here in South San Francisco, and then we move forward. Is that correct? All right.
And one last thing to add on to that, like right now we're seeing all companies required to do the sexual harassment, hostile environment. I think an equity type review or oversight should become a regular issue done to all departments and employees of any city.
Thank you. That's a very good point. So are you thinking this is expanding the implicit bias trainings that are often required as part of DEI?
I'll let the professionals work what covers where you really get the true bite of what the message you're trying to deliver.
All right, thank you. Would anyone like to add to what Commissioner Norm has just shared with us? We have about 3 more minutes.
Yeah, I think it's part of the awareness now that we're more aware of the systemic bias that's ongoing. So it is, I think, like when we became more aware of sexual harassment, that became a mandatory training for everybody.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, Nayeli, are we to go over 2.2 now as well? Or were we just staying with 1.1? I think we need to go to 2.2 and 3.3. My apologies. So let's move ahead. Commissioner Murray, please forgive me.
That's okay. That's okay.
So 2.2, we talked about strengthening community cohesion through community engagement, and there was the focus on the CERT. Were there any considerations or recommendations that you would like to add to this to ensure racial and social equity in implementation?
There was some time that there was a talk about encouraging neighborhoods to have a homeowners association. So I think we should just we should revive that. There were some groups of people who applied for that. I think some people are skittish about that because they thought that homeowners associations collect fees, but there are organizations that have been around for a long time, like the Winston Manor group. They're a very strong association, and they make sure that Pat, you can talk about that because you're part. It's in your neighborhood, right?
It is in my neighborhood.
Yeah, and they're very, very good. They news of everything that's happening, and mobilizing the troops in a way. They
Well,
do
they
that.
send people to like all city council meetings and all school board meetings, and they reach out to their community leaders as well. My thought on targeting the Cert program, I thought that was good that they'd go into Old Town and stuff like that. But I think that what they need more than just, offering the Cert program in
For
different
emergency.
languages. I think that they need better outreach. And, I don't think that the outreach is there. Our homeowners association, they know about it and they tell everybody in the neighborhood about it. It goes into their little newsletter but I think, maybe it can be partnered with that, the program that they're starting with the library.
Yes.
Maybe that could be one of those things as well. But really, I think they need outreach, not only just saying, okay, well, we have this Cert program, but explain what the Cert program is and
So I hear promote stronger outreach to other neighborhoods and communities regarding what CERT is, what CERT does, and how it's useful to partnering neighborhoods.
And maybe have it at different times. Maybe sometimes Flora, maybe you could tell me, but is it generally in the evening and in on a certain day? Maybe you can have it on the week.
So the CERT program is really an intensive training that, I don't know if that's what they wanted here, if the offers, because sometimes they have like in the early morning training in the past. So I don't know if they would like to do a CERT light, kind of like what you need to do during an emergency. I know that is that what they're thinking of?
Yeah, so the catch and release was more of a sharing of information of what to do, how to prepare. Now the CERT training is, I believe it was a 12-week intensive training program that will be offered in multiple languages as well once it gets off the ground. But right now, to improve or enhance their outreach, they're starting with the faith-based communities of our different bilingual, monolingual communities as well. So they're piloting first with our Latinx community and then working to move forward into other faith-based communities just to begin to share that catch and release model.
Yeah, I know that we also have to partner with the fire department because I know they have some, I can't remember now the name, it may be a zone haven thing. So my goodness,
yes.
All this terminologies, maybe I'm saying something different, but anyway, they have this that a group of people living in one vicinity can have this. You can tap in using your gadget, your phone or whatever, to know if there's an emergency and make sure that everybody goes and what emergency things that you need to bring with you if you get, say, for example, a calamity or a fire, then they know exactly where to go. They know exactly what to do. What things do you have to bring?
Yes. So if we think about considerations and recommendations for the first year implementation, what specific?
Can you call, ask Jess Magallanes, our fire chief, about the zone haven.
Zone haven. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Powers or Commissioner
Yeah, just one thing, whenever we say homeowners, I'd also ask to include renters whenever possible. And I'm not very familiar with this program, so this might not make sense, but I think anytime we're doing these just in general, like community programs with law enforcement or fire officers, or like whoever wears a uniform and has a badge, I think it'd be helpful to start off with conversations to build trust and kind of address elephants that are in the room around, you know, we're not starting off in a position of trust, like there are like hundreds of years history behind this. So like wherever it's possible to incorporate those types of vulnerable conversations, I think it just helps the program be more successful. But I don't really know this program very much, so it might not be as applicable here.
Thank you. You make a great point, though. So anytime we're entering in community, we want to focus on the importance of establishing trust, right? Because in the case of emergency, we would like for all of our residents to be able to trust those who are in uniform to help us be prepared to get in and to get out safely and to be able to return home. So I do understand completely what you're expressing. Commissioner Norm, before we move on, do you have anything to add?
Real fast, Chair. I think we have to, where I'm looking at it from a different perspective. We know we have the CERT, which is already existing targeting here. With us having 5 districts in our city laid out, I'd be curious of the existing certified members of these, what districts that we're making sure we represent all the districts with what we existingly have. If we find there's a district where there's no representation, then we make a strong outreach. I happen to be in District 5. I don't know how many members of District 5 are on a CERT team. And if we see we have a deficient district, we look for volunteers.
Gotcha.
Right. Well, it's a volunteer program, so whoever volunteered before are part of the CERT program. So I think that's the outreach part that we need to do. I know that there's a lot of people from 1, 2, and 4. I don't think we have. Oh, someone's 3 too. In 5. Oh yeah, there are people from 5. The
Yeah, I
Benavides
think we're 5.
brothers. Yeah, the Benavides brothers are very active. They're on 5.
See, and I didn't know. That's why it's a good point. As you're doing, Flo, we get that way. We know we at least got coverage.
Thank you.
At least somebody can speak for that district.
Yes, that's wonderful information to share. We are about to get dropped out, so let's look at phase 3 really quickly. Educational resources to address structural inequity. So question, what considerations do you have to ensure racial and social equity and implementation as well as for first year? So maybe if we answer both questions in one statement. Commissioner Powers?
This one was a big one. Okay, 2 or 3 that are most important. I would say, there's so many. Well, I'll start with the consideration. I do think we should follow the lead of youth here. I thought their ideas were great and just touched on a lot of different things that were missing, I thought, from the previous suggestions. So kind of follow their lead and convert them to a commission or whatever they need to have more ability to do the leadership that they want to do. I guess the attendance and participation in the first year is the most important thing given COVID. So if that's resource gaps with Wi-Fi or whatever it is. I'm speaking in the first year, which I know in the education system right now, it's just really difficult to achieve any of these things. So yeah.
Okay. And implement universal preschool and or pre-K.
It is important, I think, to start with the people who are, the kids, the younger people. Economic mobility is also achieved by ensuring that kids are more educated. And I for the Chamber of Commerce, they have the scholarship program, and now they have this endowment that scholarships for all the kids who are graduating from our local high schools here. I think I don't have a business. We're a family, but I have been having 4-year scholarships offered to the kids. This is my third third, fourth year. I can't remember now. Anyway, maybe other families who don't have businesses. Right now, I think a lot of people think that it's the Chamber of Commerce only for businesses, but they have opened it up for families who would like to share their blessings and get those scholarships for those kids.
So what I hear you saying is that the Chamber of Commerce is an avenue to offer scholarships for.
They have this every year, the scholarship program
As if
that they
any-
organize.
Okay, so any student can apply, or is it for all graduating seniors?
For our
If
graduating students, yeah.
If I'm interject, I used to be the president of the chamber. It's like Flo said, it's an ongoing program. The way it was existing at the time, any child who attended a school in South San Francisco, El Camino, South City, Baden, or they were a South City residence child, they could apply. And then depending on the benefactors, years we would give up to $30,000 to $35,000 scholarships.
So,
Yeah.
wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Sorry to
So
interrupt
it'd be
you, Flo, I
interesting to
apologize.
provide, to also think about the outreach so that young people can receive information. 'Cause one thing we heard from the young people today was that they are not privy to a lot of information that could help them in their college or, end of school ambitions. So ensuring that that outreach happens and that information gets out sounds like would coincide with the engagement process. Support low income and students of color in attendance participation, implement universal preschool and or pre-K and enrichment programs. Commissioner Murray, would you have anything to add to those?
Yeah, I think everything has to start with universal preschool and pre-K. I think, that's what sets the kids up for success, really. Most kids that are coming into the schools have a lot of the kids have some sort of preschool experience, but I think that it's really hard to get into preschools in South City. There's long waiting lists, and it's, the studies show that the kids that have some preschool experience do better in school. So personally, that's where I would start. But I think, as I said in the meeting, Ethan has reached out to the school board and he's hoping that they become a commission, but he's reached out to the superintendent and the school board about partnering with the school board. He had heard about the committee that we want to, or that we're going to put together of youth and kids that aren't necessarily in the leadership classes, just kids who want to be a part of this and who might not necessarily be at the table. And so there's still a lot of thinking going on how we're going to do this committee, but we are looking at Jefferson High School District's committee and we plan to put it together. So partnering these two groups, a city group, even at this young age, a city group with a school group, you get a lot of good information. Anytime we're partnering and collaborating, I think it's a good thing. And then with
We have
regards
1 minute left.
Okay, with regards to the enrichment programs and leadership development, I think the city school district, when we got together before this, we talked about the school district and the city working together and seeing what kind of opportunities we can provide students with, and specifically students of color and low-income families. Identify and pilot new ways to engage students and families. One of the things that crossed the school board was a community center on campus. Years ago, there used to be one. It was based on a grant. It was done through, the grant was created a community center on campus at South San Francisco High School, and it It engaged families and kids, but kids and families. It taught English classes to people who wanted to learn how to speak English, families that wanted to learn, parents, guardians that wanted to learn how to speak English, but also provided them with good resources.